All right. Good morning, colleagues. Please take your seats so we can start. Whoops. I call to order the 23rd plenary meeting of the Second Committee of the 77th session of the General Assembly. Before proceeding further, I would like to remind members that all delegates are strongly encouraged to wear a face mask covering at all times in the conference rooms, except when directly addressing the meeting. I next invite the committee to turn to agenda item 139 entitled Program Planning. May I remind the committee that at its third plenary meeting on 16 September, the General Assembly decided to allocate agenda item 139 on program planning to all the main committees and the plenary of the General Assembly to enhance the discussions on the evaluation, planning, budgeting, and monitoring of reports. It is my understanding that no action is expected from the committee under this item at this time. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with program planning? I see no request for the floor. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of agenda item 139 on program planning. Colleagues, this morning the committee is expected to take action on 13 draft resolutions before it under various agenda items and sub-items. The documentation for this meeting is listed in today's journal. Before we proceed to action, I would like to recall that time limits of 2 minutes for introduction of draft resolutions and 5 minutes for general statements or statements in explanation of voter position in relation to the draft proposals. I would like to further recall that, in accordance with Rule 128 of the Rules of Procedure of the General Assembly, the author of a proposal is not permitted to explain his or her vote on his or her own proposal. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 15, Information and Communications Technologies for Sustainable Development, in order to take action on draft resolution L59 of the same title as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Abdulrahman Abdulaziz Fahad Al-Thani, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L4 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L59 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the co-facilitators, Ms. Karina Ratnamurthy of Indonesia and Mr. Jorge Arturo Rios of Mexico for their efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful and timely conclusion. I also thank delegations for their active participation and constructive engagements in negotiations. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L59? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L59? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L59 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L59? And I see the representative of the European Union to be followed by Republic of Korea. Microphone for the European Union.
Madam Chair, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries, Turkey, Serbia, Albania, Ukraine, and the Republic of Moldova, the potential candidate country Bosnia and Herzegovina, align themselves with this statement. At the outset, let me thank the co-facilitators, Karina Ratnamurni from Indonesia and Jorge Rios from Mexico, the UN Secretariat and other delegations for their truly tireless work on this resolution. The EU welcomes the adoption of this resolution. We are pleased that we once again confirm the importance of ICTs and digital transformation for sustainable development. A multi-stakeholder approach is necessary to bridge digital divides, harness the benefits of digital transformation, and address the related challenges that arise. The EU and its member states value strong multi-stakeholder participation and believe that our work at the UN on digital issues can only benefit from multi-stakeholder contributions. We are concerned that not all delegations may fully share the view that all stakeholders must be fully and meaningfully involved in this endeavor. We particularly regret that the preambular part of this resolution now includes a new and misplaced reference to stakeholders' roles and responsibilities. In our view, this reference is, at best, unnecessary, and at worst, could be used to try to limit stakeholders' engagement. Such loose use of the reference should be avoided in future negotiations. Madam Chair, we welcome that this year's resolution includes stronger language on gender equality and a new paragraph on digitalization for education and lifelong learning. Moreover, we are pleased that the resolution recognizes the forthcoming process for the development of a global digital compact. As the resolution states, this should be an open and inclusive process. We would like to further stress the need to ensure meaningful stakeholders' engagement and participation in the process. The EU and its member states look forward to engaging constructively and believe that the outcome should strengthen digital cooperation and inclusive, human rights-based and multi-stakeholder digital governance. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the Republic of Korea to be followed by Switzerland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the Republic of Korea, I would like to thank the G77 and China for tabling this important resolution. My delegation also thanks the co-facilitators from Mexico and Indonesia for their excellent coordination, as well as the Secretariat for their ongoing support throughout these negotiations. The Republic of Korea welcomes the adoption of this resolution by consensus and is pleased to join the consensus. My government has been sharing its digital government technologies and contributing towards digital transformation in developing countries through expanded ODA. President Yoon Suk-yeol has also called for collective efforts to bridge the digital divides across the world, as well as expressed strong willingness to share Korea's advanced digital technologies and data with developing countries in his address at the UN General Assembly last September. In this regard, we welcome that this resolution reflects the development of a global digital compact to strengthen digital cooperation through an open and inclusive process and takes note of the role of Secretary General's Envoy on Technology in supporting this effort. We will actively participate and cooperate in the discussions related with the Global Digital Compact, and we encourage all member states to constructively engage in this process together. One more important thing that we would like to highlight in developing the Global Digital Compact is multi-stakeholder participation. Indeed, the private sector, civil society, the technical and academic communities, and all other relevant stakeholders have played a crucial role in digital transformation. As such, without their full participation, we will simply not be able to draw a meaningful outcome of the Global Digital Compact. In the same context, as we seriously discussed during the negotiations and agreed upon, we should not interpret nor utilize the stakeholder texts reflected in PP 45 and PP 46 in a way that restricts the key participation of stakeholders. Rather, we should use the text for helping to ensure their full participation. Madam Chair, the Republic of Korea will continue to accelerate its sustained efforts to share our digital technologies and data with the international community to help realize an open, free, and secure digital future for all. Warmly welcoming the adoption of this resolution again, my delegation looks forward to continuing our active discussions on this vital issue. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the Republic of Korea, and I now give the floor to the representative of Switzerland, to be followed by the United Kingdom.
Madame la Présidente, la Suisse tient à remercier les co-facilitateurs et toutes les délégations pour l'excellent et constructif dialogue qui nous a permis d'aboutir à une résolution globalement équilibrée, jetant les bases d'avancées nouvelles dans des domaines importants liés à la coopération et la gouvernance numérique. La Suisse est ravie de se joindre au consensus et de soutenir cette résolution. À cet égard, nous nous félicitons en premier lieu de l'accord concernant la voie vers un pacte numérique mondial renforçant la coopération numérique via un processus ouvert et inclusif, tenant compte du travail effectué aux Nations Unies et au sein des processus et forats pertinents. Nous demandons instamment aux co-facilitateurs de ce processus, juste à côté de moi et devant moi, de tenir compte de l'appel de cette résolution en faveur d'un processus ouvert et inclusif et de prendre aussi en compte les discussions qui se dérouleront au forum sur la gouvernance de l'Internet de l'ONU à Addis Abeba la semaine prochaine, dont le programme est pleinement aligné sur le contenu envisagé du pacte numérique mondial. Madame la Présidente, permettez-moi en deuxième lieu de saluer le nouveau langage sur la gouvernance des données qui reconnaît la nécessité de poursuivre des discussions sur le lien entre les données et le développement durable, y compris la gouvernance des données, ceci tout en tenant compte des dimensions multiples des données. Compte tenu de l'importance rapide et croissante de cette question sur la nécessité de la traiter urgemment, nous aurions toutefois souhaité des progrès plus concrets en vue d'un processus multipartite sur ce sujet. Les bases sont au moins désormais posées et nous nous réjouissons de poursuivre le débat au sein du système des Nations Unies. Je vous remercie.
I thank the representative of Switzerland for his statement, and I now give the floor to the United Kingdom, to be followed by the United States.
Madam Chair, the UK is pleased to join consensus on this resolution, and we thank the co-facilitators from Mexico and Indonesia for their efforts. Information and communication technologies and digital transformation can improve lives and advance the SDGs, which is why we must prioritise efforts to close digital divides and ensure meaningful internet access for the 2.9 billion people that remain unconnected. Realising the benefits of digital transformation requires a whole-of-society approach, including the private sector, civil society, academia, the UN and other international organisations and governments. In 2003, the Geneva Declaration from the World Summit on the Information Society recognised that all stakeholders have an important role and responsibility in the development of the information society. This remains as relevant today as it did almost 2 decades ago. While different groups of stakeholders do play different roles in different contexts, they also have shared interests and shared responsibilities, and these can evolve with time. Importantly, the work of one stakeholder group affects and interacts with another's. Promoting collaboration and cooperation between stakeholders, rather than seeking to restrict their efforts, is therefore key to developing shared solutions to problems and maximising development gains. A good example of this are the contributions of civil society to efforts to enhance local network capability and promote digital development all over the world. We look forward to participating in the development of a global digital compact to improve digital cooperation and support the role of the Secretary-General's envoy on technology in this regard. It is essential that this process is taken forward in an open and inclusive way that enables stakeholders to participate meaningfully in discussions. As the Tech Envoy has said, we can all learn from each other. And so it is important that a diverse range of stakeholders, in particular from the Global South, have the opportunity to share their valuable perspectives. The UK also looks forward to our role as co-chair of the Science, Technology and Innovation Forum next May, alongside South Africa and the ECOSOC Ambassador Lacazera. We will work with you all to ensure that this is inclusive, ambitious and result-focused. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for her statement, and I now give the floor to the United States.
The United States strongly supports the advancement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and closing the digital divides. We are pleased to join consensus on this resolution. Regarding our position on the characterization of technology and/or knowledge transfer, we refer you to our general statement delivered on November 21st. The United States would also like to reaffirm its strong support for the active and meaningful participation of all stakeholders, including governments, the private sector, civil society, academia, and the technical community, on issues related to the role of information and communication technologies to help advance the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. In this regard, we welcome that the General Assembly, through this resolution, calls for an inclusive process to develop a global digital compact as proposed in our common agenda. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States, and I see no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L59, I understand that draft resolution L4 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of agenda item 15. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 16B, International Financial System and Development, in order to take action on draft resolution A/C2/77/L63 of the same title as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Vladimir Budu, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L6 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L63 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitator, Mr. Tumazi Blair of Antigua and Barbuda, for his efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful and timely conclusion, and I also thank delegations for their constructive engagements in the negotiations. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L63? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L63? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L63 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L63? And I see Hungary, to be followed by the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hungary wishes to add some remarks in its national capacity regarding the resolution titled International Financial System and Development. We welcome the adoption of this important resolution, but Hungary is not in the position to support paragraph 17, as it contains a verbatim quote from the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration. As you might know, Hungary voted against the Global Compact for Migration in 2018, and we do not take part in its implementation either. Therefore, we cannot support any references to the GCM in internationally negotiated documents. Regarding the language in paragraph 17, we would have preferred a more general reference to vulnerable groups, since some groups may have been missed, while others have been cited arbitrarily, such as migrants in this context. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Hungary for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the facilitator for his extraordinary work on this complex resolution. The United States is pleased to join consensus, but we must disassociate from operative paragraph 42, which contains a reference to certain unilateral economic, financial, or trade measures. Economic sanctions are an appropriate, effective, and legitimate tool that can be used to achieve national security and foreign policy objectives, and the United States is not alone in that view or in that practice. In cases where the United States has applied sanctions, we have done so with specific objectives in mind, including as a means to promote a return to rule of law or democratic systems, or respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, or to respond to threats to international security. We take this opportunity to clarify our position on a few issues. With respect to PP24 and OP38, it is usually not the role of this official sector to intervene in the specific methodologies and/or practices of private credit rating agencies. Issues related to determination of sovereign ratings should be resolved between private industry and the sovereign entities subject to the ratings. There is no clear indication that the ratings assigned by the rating agencies are not evidence or fact-based. Additionally, we would clarify that we are not aware of participation in the debt service suspension initiative that had an impact on sovereign ratings. As the DSSI's term specified, the treatments were to be net present value neutral, and participation by the private sector was fully voluntary. With respect to PP25, we disagree with referencing IMF quota reform without mention of the new quota formula as a guide, because we see a streamlined formula as the best way to meet the guiding principles for the quota review, particularly to be simple and transparent. We appreciate reference to the new quota formula in OP24 Alt. With respect to OP8, we disagree with including language stressing the need to consider an increase in concessional funding from multilateral development banks, as the level of concessional funding is already considered during replenishment negotiations conducted by these institutions' respective governance bodies. We also view the language on consideration of global financial system reform to be too vague to have practical meaning. With respect to OP19, we disagree with language that encourages the provision of flexible, concessional, fast dispersing, and front-loaded assistance without regard to the financial sustainability of the institutions, the development impact and effect on poverty reduction of such assistance, or the presence of an appropriate macroeconomic policy framework. The concessionality of assistance is determined by governance bodies of the international financial institutions, which allocate limited concessional resources considering income and creditworthiness. Furthermore, this language could be read as encouraging multilateral development banks to refrain from adhering to the high social, environmental, and fiduciary standards that are essential to achieving sustainable development. Finally, regarding our position on trade, the WTO, special drawing rights, concessional finance, technology transfers, and economic sanctions, we refer to our general statement delivered on November 21st. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States, and I see no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L63, I understand that draft resolution L6 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item B of agenda item 16. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 16C, external debt, sustainability and development, in order to take action on draft resolution L64 of the same title, as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Vladimir Budo, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L7 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L64 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitator of the draft resolution, Ms. Kimberly Louise of St. Lucia, for her efforts in bringing the informal consultations to successful conclusion. I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the process. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L64? I see no requests for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L64? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L64 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L64? I see the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to warmly thank the facilitator of this resolution. The United States is pleased to join consensus. We reiterate that debt transparency, including public debt disclosure, is critical to maximize the benefits of common framework debt relief, promote debt sustainability, and allow for fair burden sharing. Regarding the references to non-cooperative minority bondholders in OPs 28 and 29, we note that the ability of such bondholders to block a deal is permitted by law in the covenants agreed to by the issuer. As such, we believe it is outside the scope of a UN resolution to express concern about the enforceability of contracts. Regarding the references to debt swaps in PP 18 and OP 26, we note that debt swaps in an appropriate context may be useful tools for supporting certain policy goals. It is important, however, to clearly distinguish between attempts to use debt swaps to achieve policy goals versus attempts to use debt swaps to address debt sustainability issues. Debt swaps are generally weak and inappropriate tools to address fundamental debt sustainability issues. Debt swaps cannot resolve large-scale debt crises, nor can they replace reform-backed IMF programs and debt treatments designed to restore long-run debt sustainability in specific cases. To be clear, we emphasize that we do not support the usage of debt swaps to address debt sustainability issues, and we do not recognize this language as indicating our support for such. Regarding the references to debt relief and debt restructuring in OP 21B, we emphasize the purpose of debt treatments is the fundamental restoration of debt sustainability in unsustainable debt situations. It is not to finance ad hoc policy initiatives, including the Sustainable Development Goals, even if providing additional fiscal space, thereby allowing additional policy spending as a secondary effect of debt treatments. We do not recognize this language as indicating the United States' support for the usage of debt treatments for purposes other than the restoration of debt sustainability. Finally, we refer you to our general statement delivered on November 21st for more information regarding our positions on special drawing rights, trade, technology transfer, and the Sendai framework. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States, and I see no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L64, I understand that draft resolution L7 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item C of agenda item 16. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 16D, promotion of international cooperation to combat illicit financial flows and strengthen good practices on assets returns to foster sustainable development, in order to take action on draft resolution L66 of the same title, as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Vladimir Budu, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L8 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L66 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitator, Ms. Soraya Jacobs of South Africa, for her efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful conclusion, and I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the negotiations. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L66? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L66? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L66 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L66? And I see the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States appreciated the opportunity to participate in these important discussions over the past weeks and is pleased to join consensus on this resolution. The United States strongly supports the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and particularly its emphasis on issues such as transparency, rule of law, and inclusive and sustainable economic growth, all issues that are relevant to this resolution. However, some of the language in this resolution undermines our ability to work constructively to address these challenges. The international framework for asset recovery is primarily outlined in the UN Convention Against Corruption. This important treaty prescribes the measures states parties must adopt and implement to successfully detect, restrain, and confiscate the proceeds of crime. Unfortunately, this resolution mischaracterizes and misinterprets many of these obligations. The United States therefore reiterates that nothing in this resolution changes or nullifies the existing asset recovery treaty obligations that the United States takes very seriously. Additionally, the United States expresses its concern the resolution places on overemphasis on asset return to the detriment of other integral parts of the asset recovery process. Countries are only successful in the asset recovery when they have the sufficient political will and capacity to investigate and prosecute corruption crimes domestically. Member states should focus their time and attention on supporting and encouraging all members to pursue their own asset recovery cases domestically. The UNCAC Conference of States Parties serves as the UN's lead body promoting anti-corruption and related anti-crime policy, and is the appropriate venue for relevant experts to consider issues addressing the recovery and return of the proceeds of these crimes. This resolution undermines the UNCAC COSP's role in leading discussions at the global level. Calls for a new report by the UNGA Secretary General are inappropriate. We reiterate longstanding concerns that language in this resolution undermines our ability to work together constructively to address money laundering, corruption, and other related crimes. Finally, we regret that one member state could not accept long-standing precedent language welcoming the Global Forum for Asset Recovery and its communique. The Global Forum for Asset Recovery principles adopted at the forum recognized that transparency and accountability are essential in the asset return process. We will continue to work with all willing partners to reaffirm the important role in that GFAR principles can play in the asset return process. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States, and I now give the floor to the representative of Nigeria.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to thank Ms. Rhea Jacobs for her steady but relentlessly pursued the consensus while facilitating these resolutions. And I would like to also appreciate a member of this Bureau, Mr. Vladimir Buho, for his consistent support and assistance towards the process. I also wish to express the gratitude to many delegations for the returning to the consensus on these resolutions. This is an important development that should prepare us for future of more ambitious work to combating illicit financial flow. This resolution has significantly advanced since the last time it was comprehensively negotiated. We have also tackled issues of professionals that enable illicit financial flow, the improvement needed on exchange of information for tax purposes, issues a call to strengthen data and information on asset recovery and return, as well as improving information cooperations, and gave recognition to the need for the whole of government approach to combat illicit financial flow at the national level. Madam Chair, though this resolution has been on the table for many years, efforts previously made have not significantly translated into much needed actions as desired. We must do more, and we must do it faster. One of the key priorities for the G77 and China is the upgrade of the United Nations Committee of Experts on International Cooperations in tax matters has again not been accepted by partners through the subject has been discussed over the years, decade even. We urge all partners to think deeply over the next year about why they find it unacceptable to talk to government about tax matters at the United Nations, the international organizations that we all have agreed has the most legitimacy, convening power, and normative impact. Or we cannot be clear that on this urgent issue, an annual review of progress be undertaken through the Economic and Social Council with a combination for necessary actions, while bearing in mind that the deadline for achieving the 2030 Agenda Sustainable Development is approaching. We cannot invest in sustainable development without sufficient resources and good governance. We therefore must to move at the fast pace and tackle the illicit financial flow. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the representative of Nigeria for the statement, and there are no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L66, I understand that draft resolution L8 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item D of agenda item 16. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 16E, promoting investments for sustainable development, in order to take action on draft resolution A/C2/77/65 of the same title, as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Vladimir Budo, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L9 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the group of G77 and China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L65 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitator, Mr. Felipe Ramos de Alencar da Costa of Brazil, for his efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful and timely conclusion. I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the process. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L65? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L65? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L65 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L65? And I see the United States to be followed by the European Union.
By thanking the facilitator for his leadership on this resolution. The United States recognizes that foreign direct investment in developing countries is critical to achieving sustainable development, and we are pleased to join consensus on this resolution. We refer you to our general statement delivered on November 21st for our full position on cross-cutting issues, including the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, and the text concerning technology and/or knowledge transfer in PP8, PP29, PP34, and OP32, and disaster risk reduction in OP18 and OP20. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries, Turkey, Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, Ukraine, and the Republic of Moldova, the potential candidate countries, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Georgia, align themselves with this statement. We welcome the adoption by consensus of the draft resolution. We thank Brazil for its facilitation, UNCTAD for its assistance, and all delegations for their constructive spirit, paving the way for an overall smooth negotiation process. The draft adopted today represents a significant improvement on last year's edition. Among other elements, the text, to our satisfaction, recognizes the negative impact that the dramatic changes in the global environment in 2022, including current geopolitical tensions and conflicts, and multiple and interlocked crises of food, energy, and finance, are having on global foreign direct investment trends overall and in developing countries in particular. Second, the text points out the relevance of aligning investments with SDGs to achieve the 2030 Agenda, while highlighting the importance of investing in some sectors to that end, namely in water and sanitation, which is particularly welcome in view of the upcoming water conference. Third, the text establishes a connection to integrated national financing frameworks, INFFs, being prepared, aimed at promoting the implementation of plans to mobilize and align private finance with national development plans, and more importantly, the text acknowledges the helpful role of sustainable finance taxonomies as tools that generate more transparency and incentivize the private sector to adopt and invest in sustainable practices, as well as foster long-term quality investment. And the text further details the criteria for the creation of more competitive business and investment climates, namely as regards the promotion of market transparency, improving access to market information, and easing the processes of setting up business. In short, we were successful in updating a text that had been mostly frozen over the past 2 years due to 2C negotiating pandemic restrictions. This will no doubt constitute a good basis for further discussions on financing for development over the coming year. You can count on us to continue engaging constructively on these issues, including in the negotiations of this resolution in the next session. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union, and there are no further requests for the floor. In line of the adoption of draft resolution L65, I understand that draft resolution L9 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item E of agenda item 16. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 18C, disaster risk reduction, in order to take action on draft resolution L51 of the same title as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Ahmed Magdi, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L35 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L51 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the co-facilitators, Ms. Ponrawe Neung Puanatitai of Thailand, and I'm sorry for massacring your name, and Mr. Duarte Valente of Portugal for their efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful and timely conclusion. I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the process. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L51? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L51? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L51 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L51? I see the representative of the European Union to be followed by Australia.
Madam Chair, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries Montenegro, Serbia, Ukraine, and the Republic of Moldova, the potential candidate countries Bosnia and Herzegovina and Georgia, and the EFTA country Norway, member of the European Economic Area, align themselves with this statement. At the outset, let me thank the co-facilitators, Ponrawe Nung Punatitai of Thailand and Duarte Valente of Portugal, the Secretariat and other delegations for their cooperative and constructive work on this resolution. The EU welcomes the adoption of this resolution. This resolution is becoming increasingly relevant with each passing year, as the number and scale of disasters and their devastating impact have resulted in massive loss of life and long-term negative economic, social, and environmental consequences, especially for vulnerable societies throughout the world, which hampers the achievement of their sustainable development. We are pleased that the resolution recognizes that disaster risk is increasingly complex and systemic, and that hazards can trigger one another with cascading impacts across sectors and geographies, as well as at the local, national, regional, and global levels. We also welcome that this year's resolution underlines the need for multidimensional and comprehensive risk assessment and the promotion of coherence between humanitarian and development assistance, which can contribute to strengthening resilience and climate change adaptation for a more targeted and effective approach to prevention and resilience building. We are equally pleased that the resolution recognizes the importance of integrating a disaster risk reduction perspective aimed at improving food security and nutrition. We deem that especially this year, this resolution is of critical importance in view of the midterm review of the Sendai framework. We hope that all positive developments in this resolution, ranging from multidimensional and comprehensive risk assessments and anticipatory action to nature-based solutions and early warning systems, will be reflected in the political declaration as the outcome of the high-level meeting in May next year. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the representative of the European Union for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Australia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the honour to deliver this statement on behalf of the governments of Canada, New Zealand, and my own country, Australia. At the outset, CANS expresses its deepest condolences to the people and government of Indonesia following the recent devastating earthquake. Madam Chair, CANS would like to acknowledge the excellent co-facilitation of the disaster risk reduction resolution by Thailand and Portugal, and we thank the G77 and China for bringing forward this resolution. CANS is committed to building climate and disaster resilience through disaster risk reduction and climate action. This resolution makes clear that climate change is increasing disaster risk in a variety of ways, including through altering the location, frequency, and intensity of natural hazards, and by affecting vulnerability to natural hazards by, for example, reducing livelihood opportunities and changing exposure patterns. We know disasters exacerbate existing inequalities. Women, people with disability, Indigenous peoples, the elderly, and other marginalised communities are disproportionately affected by disasters and have different and uneven levels of resilience and capacity to recover. In particular, CANS recognises the influential contribution of women leaders at local, national, and international levels. As such, while the resolution as agreed is a powerful contribution to international commitments to reducing risks, CANS had hoped to see the important agreed conclusions of the Commission on the Status of Women on Climate Change, the Environment and Disaster Risk Reduction recognised in this closely related resolution. We would urge Member States to double down on our shared commitment to inclusion and particularly gender equality that is so clearly articulated in the Sendai framework.
Madam Chair, in my national capacity, I note that Australia's region, the Asia-Pacific, is the most disaster-prone region in the world, and we were therefore proud to contribute to finding solutions for this challenge by hosting the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction in Brisbane in September. At our regional platform and at the global platform on disaster risk reduction hosted by Indonesia, we were reminded that the world is off track against all Sendai commitments and that calls for change focus on scaling up efforts to address the impacts of climate change. Therefore, we must look for integrated approaches to address climate and disaster risk. Australia looks forward to co-facilitating with our friends from Indonesia the political declaration for the high-level meeting on the midterm review of the implementation of the Sendai framework. This second committee resolution will be a key building block for the review, and we look forward to working with all member states and stakeholders to strengthen our commitment to risk governance and action. It will be a timely opportunity for us to also work with UNDRR to take stock of where the opportunities lie for renewed momentum to achieve the Sendai targets. Importantly, the review will inform outcomes of forthcoming UN conferences and summits, including deliberations of the ECOSOC HLPF on sustainable development, the SDG summit, and the high-level dialogue on financing for development. Madam Chair, I thank you.
I thank the representative of Australia for her statement. There are no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L51, I understand that draft resolution L35 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item C of agenda item 18. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 18E, implementation of the United Nations Convention to combat desertification in those countries experiencing serious drought and/or desertification, particularly in Africa. In order to take action on draft resolution L58 of the same title as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Ahmed Makti, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L29 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of G77 and China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L58 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the co-facilitators, Mr. Jaswuni Abudu Birensborn of Ghana and Ms. Hilde Engelbertsdottir of Iceland for their efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful and timely conclusion. I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the negotiations. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L58? I see none. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L58? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L58 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution 58? And I see the representative of the United States to be followed by the European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the United States, I would like to extend our thanks to the facilitator for the successful shepherding of this resolution, and we are pleased to join consensus. The United States supports the UN Convention to Combat Desertification in its global efforts to reduce land degradation, increase land restoration, and build resilience to drought. We are working with the UNCCD, allies, and partners to prevent desertification, engage in reforestation, and tackle soil erosion. This includes investment in organizations that deploy technologies to protect natural resources and increase access to the knowledge necessary to protect natural resources. We support land restoration efforts internationally through USAID and through multilateral funds like the Global Environment Facility. Through the President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience, or PREPARE, the United States aims to help more than 500 million people in developing countries to adapt to and manage the impacts of climate change, including drought, by 2030. Regarding references to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, we refer you to our general statement delivered on November 21st. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States, and I now give the floor to the European Union to be followed by Mexico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the honor to speak on behalf of the European Union and its member states, the candidate countries Montenegro, Albania, and Ukraine, and the potential candidate countries Bosnia and Herzegovina and Georgia aligned themselves with this statement. The European Union and its member states are joining consensus today on the UNCCD resolution as we are committed to the global efforts to combat desertification, restoring degraded land and soil, and striving to achieve a land degradation neutral world by 2030. However, we would have liked to see a more balanced outcome, and we remain convinced that common grounds could have been found through a more constructive negotiation. Although the European Union and its member states showed flexibility in order to ensure the consensual adoption of the resolution, we do not agree with the interpretation of the UNCCD COP15 language made in OP 11 of this resolution. We are therefore dissociating from that paragraph. Finally, we would like to thank the co-facilitators Yeswuni Abudu Biresborn from Ghana and Hilda Engilbersdottir from Iceland, as well as all involved in the negotiation process for their engagement. The European Union and its member states will continue to engage constructively in the negotiation of this resolution in the next session. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union, and I now give the floor to the representative of Mexico.
Gracias, señora presidenta. México se suma al reconocimiento a su trabajo, al Buró y al Secretariado en los trabajos de la Segunda Comisión. Agradecemos también los esfuerzos de Islandia y Ghana durante este proceso de negociación. Mi delegación se unió al consenso en la adopción de esta resolución, ya que reconoce la importancia de trabajar conjuntamente para lograr la implementación de la Convención de Naciones Unidas para la lucha contra la desertificación, sabiendo que millones de personas son afectadas por las graves consecuencias que la desertificación y las sequías tienen en la salud, la seguridad alimentaria, el bienestar de las personas o en el cumplimiento de los ODS. Señora presidenta, México celebra el fortalecimiento del lenguaje en cuestiones como género, biodiversidad, cambio climático o migración. Sin embargo, lamentamos la formulación presentada sobre los enfoques basados en los ecosistemas y las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza en el párrafo preambular 12 y en el párrafo operativo 10. Mi país considera de suma importancia alinear este texto al lenguaje acordado en otras resoluciones de la Asamblea General, de la Asamblea de Naciones Unidas para el Medio Ambiente o del Foro Político de Alto Nivel sobre Desarrollo Sostenible. Señora presidenta, a pesar de que mi delegación expresó con claridad y en reiteradas ocasiones las consideraciones mencionadas, la posición de mi país no fue consultada adecuadamente antes de que el texto se colocara bajo procedimiento de silencio. México ha mostrado en múltiples ocasiones ser un conductor de puentes y abierto al diálogo, evitando bloquear cualquier proceso a pesar de no haber acuerdos. Hacemos un llamado para que los procesos de negociación mantengan su espíritu inclusivo, transparente y abierto. En México se seguirá encontrando una delegación que prioriza el entendimiento mutuo y el multilateralismo por encima de las diferencias. Muchas gracias.
I thank the representative of Mexico for her statement, and there are no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L58, I understand that draft resolution L29 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item E of agenda item 18. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 18F, Convention on Biological Diversity, in order to take action on draft resolution A/C2/77/L32 Rev 1 entitled Implementation of the Convention on Biological Diversity and its Contribution to Sustainable Development, as submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L31 Rev 1 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitator of the draft resolution, Ms. Soledad Sandler of Argentina, for her efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a conclusion. I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the process. Does any delegation not a member of the Group of 77 in China wish to join as sponsor of draft resolution L32 Rev 1? Please signify by pressing your microphone button. I see none. A recorded vote has been requested on operative paragraph 2 on draft resolution L32 Rev 1. Does any delegation wish to make a general statement or an explanation of vote before the vote on operative paragraph 2 of draft resolution L32 Rev 1? I see none. The committee will now commence the process of voting on operative paragraph 2 on draft resolution L32 Rev 1. Delegations are requested to signify their votes. Those in favor of operative paragraph 2 on draft resolution L32 Rev 1, please signify. Those against and abstentions?
committee is now voting on operative paragraph 2 of draft resolution L32 Rev 1 entitled Implementation of the Convention on Biological Diversity and its Contribution to Sustainable Development. Those in favour of retaining operative paragraph 2 should vote yes. Those in favour of its deletion should vote no. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are correctly reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
I thank the Secretary. The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 165, against 3, abstentions 2. Operative paragraph 2 of draft resolution L32 Rev 1 is retained. Before we proceed to action on draft resolution L32 Rev 1 as a whole, does any delegation wish to make an explanation of vote or general statement after the vote on operative paragraph 2? I see no request for the floor. The committee will now take action on draft resolution L32 Rev 1 as a whole. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L32 Rev 1 as a whole? I see the United States.
The United States thanks the facilitator for their efforts and persistence in guiding this resolution over the last several weeks. We are pleased to join consensus in support of the Convention on Biological Diversity and its contribution to sustainable development. The United States is supportive of an ambitious global biodiversity framework and looks forward to COP15 this December. We appreciate Canada serving as host of this important event. Regrettably, the United States must disassociate from operative paragraph 2. Our strongly held view is well known that any reference to the Kunming Declaration is unacceptable, as this document was not transparently negotiated by all member states and therefore should not be noted. We also reiterate the position of the United States, delivered in our general statement with regard to this resolution's references to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, and the transfer of technology. We look forward to continued work with all member states on the critical issue of climate change. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States. I see no further requests for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L32 Rev 1? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L32 Rev 1 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L32 Rev 1? I give the floor to the representative of China, to be followed by the European Union.
主席女士，我要首先感谢本决议 facilitator 所做的出色的工作，感谢各位会员国对 OP2 的支持。自1992年生物多样性公约开放签署以来，已成为全球加入国家最多的国际环境公约之一，为全球生物多样性保护事业发挥了重要作用。个别国家至今未批准公约，拒不承担自身国际义务和责任，却否认196个公约缔约方开展的全球生物多样性保护合作。这种做法令人费解，更让人无法接受。我们敦促有关国家摒弃零和思维，多做有益于全球可持续发展合作的事，以实际行动取信国际社会。中国一贯重视生物多样性保护，是最早签署和批准公约的缔约方之一。中方将生物多样性保护作为生态文明建设的重要内容，认真履行国际义务，在生物多样性治理方面取得显著成绩。同时，我们积极开展生物多样性保护国际合作，在南南合作框架下，为发展中国家提供力所能及的支持。生物多样性公约第15次缔约方大会第一阶段会议于去年10月在中国昆明成功举行，达成昆明宣言。中方还宣布成立昆明生物多样性基金等举措，为全球生物多样性治理注入强劲动力。COP15第2阶段会议即将举行，并制定通过2020年后全球生物多样性框架。中方将继续积极发挥主席国作用， 推动各方相向而行，尽快达成兼具雄心和务实平衡的框架，为未来全球生物多样性保护设定目标，明确路径，共建人与自然和谐共生的地球家园。谢谢主席女士。
I thank the representative of China for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the European Union and 41 UN member states, namely the 27 member states of the European Union, as well as Albania, Australia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Canada, Georgia, Iceland, the Republic of Moldova, Monaco, Montenegro, New Zealand, Norway, Serbia, Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. We are joining consensus today on the CBD resolution as we are strongly committed to the global efforts to halt and reverse biodiversity loss for achieving a nature-positive world by 2030. We welcome the fact that this year's resolution takes into account the important developments which have occurred over the last year in various processes and meetings, such as UNEA, Stockholm Plus 50, and the second UN Ocean Conference, all of which have important implications for the protection of biodiversity. However, we regret that it was not possible to retain the agreed language on nature-based solutions, and that while UNEA adopted an internationally agreed definition of this concept, we were faced with positions that sought to weaken it in the General Assembly. We strongly believe that nature-based solutions are a critical asset in addressing global societal challenges, such as climate change, biodiversity decline, and ecosystem service loss. We are also disappointed that we were unable to refer to the need to eliminate, phase out, or reform harmful subsidies. According to the OECD, currently for each US dollar put into protecting and restoring biodiversity, $8 have the opposite effect. The alignment of all financial flows with biodiversity objectives will thus be essential to the success of the global biodiversity framework. Madam Chair, as the world faces the interdependent crisis of biodiversity loss, ecosystem degradation, climate change, and pollution, we need urgent and transformative change. Next month, the parties to the CBD will meet in Montreal, Canada, to adopt a post-2020 global biodiversity framework. Business as usual will not do. And we will need to adopt an ambitious, comprehensive, and transformative framework with a clear, concise, and motivational mission, ensuring coherence and complementarity with other existing or upcoming international and regional processes. In short, if we are serious about halting and reversing the ongoing loss of biodiversity, we will need to step up our level of ambition in Montreal. We will continue to engage constructively in that spirit. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union for his statement, and I see no further requests for the floor. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item F of agenda item 18. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of sub-item K of agenda item 18, Sustainable Mountain Development, in order to take action on draft resolution A/C2/77/L34F1 entitled of the same title, as submitted by Italy and Kyrgyzstan on behalf of the co-sponsors. I give the floor to the Deputy Permanent Representative of Italy to introduce the draft resolution. You have the floor, sir. Yep.
Distinguished Chair,
yep.
Okay. Distinguished Chair, dear colleagues, I am pleased to introduce draft resolution AC277L34 on sustainable mountain development, also on behalf of Kyrgyzstan, sharing our appreciation for the constructive engagement of all the delegations during the informal consultations. Among other relevant goals, the draft resolution contributes to the promotion of the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Mountains are home to millions of people that often live at risk of extreme natural events, with limited access to health, education, and economic systems. Achieving sustainable mountain development would have a direct impact on lives and livelihoods in local mountain communities all over the world. Mountain regions are also a place where traditions and knowledge of indigenous people are preserved. Their intangible heritage enriches the global community, providing inspiration for realizing a more sustainable relationship between humankind and the environment. Furthermore, mountains provide indications of climate change through phenomena such as modification of biodiversity, retreat of mountain glaciers, and flash floods, with heavy impacts on sources of fresh water in the world. protecting mountain ecosystems means reducing vulnerability to climate change. The draft resolution, therefore, encourages member states to adopt long-term strategies through holistic and multi-stakeholder approaches to end poverty, address food insecurity, promote the conservation of biodiversity, and fight against social exclusion and disaster risk in mountain areas. Distinguished Chair, we remain committed in the activities aimed at the sustainable development of the mountains areas, such as the 5 years of action for the development of mountain regions 2023-2027, and the work carried out by the Mountain Partnership. On behalf of Italy and Kyrgyzstan, I wish to thank all of the co-sponsors of the resolution whose contribution confirmed the cross-regional engagement on sustainable mountain development. Our thanks also to the colleagues of the Bureau, the Secretariat, and the FAO for their support. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Italy, the Deputy Permanent Representative of Italy for the introduction. I assume the request by Kyrgyzstan is for a general statement later on. Okay. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L34F1 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the co-facilitator, Mr. Matthias Klaivas of Italy and Mr. Kushtarbek Shamshidov of Kyrgyzstan for their efforts in bringing the informal consultations to successful and timely conclusion. I also thank all delegations for their constructive engagement in the negotiations. Before we proceed, I give the floor to the Secretary to read out the additional sponsors who joined after the submission of draft resolution L34F1.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to announce that since the submission of the revised draft resolution and in addition to those listed on the L document, the following member states have also become co-sponsors of draft resolution L34 Rev 1. Albania, Andorra, Argentina, Austria, Belarus, Bhutan, Bolivia, Cambodia, Chile, China, Colombia, Cote d'Ivoire, Croatia, Czechia, Djibouti, Egypt, Equatorial Guinea, Eswatini, France, Germany, Guyana, Iceland, India, Islamic Republic of Iran, Israel, Jamaica, Japan, Jordan, Lao People's Democratic Republic, Lebanon, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Malawi, Marshall Islands, Mongolia, Montenegro, Myanmar, Nauru, Netherlands, Norway, Pakistan, Philippines, Poland, Portugal, Republic of Moldova, Romania, Russian Federation, Rwanda, San Marino, Senegal, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, Suriname, Sweden, Switzerland, Tajikistan, Togo, Turkmenistan, United States of America, and Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. If any other delegations wish to co-sponsor draft resolution L34 Rev 1, please signify by pressing the microphone button. Morocco, North Macedonia, Ethiopia, Bahamas, Bangladesh, El Salvador, Angola, Qatar, Indonesia, Serbia, Timor-Leste, Bulgaria, Palau, Costa Rica, Papua New Guinea, Antigua and Barbuda, United Republic of Tanzania, Tunisia, Sudan, Algeria, Nigeria, Congo, and Micronesia, and Libya. That concludes the list of co-sponsors. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
I thank the Secretary. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L34? And I now give the floor to the representative of Kyrgyzstan.
Madam Chair, at the outset, let me thank the Italian delegation for presenting the draft resolution L34 34 entitled Sustainable Mountain Development, as well as on behalf of Kyrgyzstan. I also briefly would like to express my appreciation to all delegations for their constructive engagement on this resolution. Kyrgyzstan is grateful for the support of the many delegations which have already signed up as co-sponsors. Dear colleagues, today, as you are all aware, the mountains are facing a harsh reality. In light of climate change, mountainous regions are in particularly vulnerable position. Mountain glaciers are rapidly melting and water resources are shrinking. Ensuring sustainable development for mountain regions is not a matter of 1 year. Therefore, the Kyrgyz Republic proposes to declare the next 5 years as the 5 years of action for the development of mountain regions. And we are thankful for the support of member states to include this important initiative in the resolution. This initiative is designed to provide new momentum to the international community's efforts to combat the problems and challenges of mountain countries, to strengthen mountain countries to jointly advocate for their interest in the UN processes, to establish dedicated financial mechanism for improved cooperation among mountain countries and specific investments and initiatives, to promote cooperation among mountain countries in the sphere of economy, social development, environment, culture, science, knowledge, and education in line with the achievement of SDGs. Madam Chair, in conclusion, let me note that the resolution which Kyrgyzstan and Italy are presenting today was negotiated in a very constructive spirit, and I would like to extend my gratitude to all colleagues who have allowed us to find consensus. I believe that we were able to come up with a strong resolution that is a significant contribution to further sustainable mountain development. My delegation would like to thank all of you for your constructive and valuable proposals and engagement throughout the consultation process. And of course also FAO and the Secretariat, including the editorial team and the translators, for their hard work. I thank you.
I thank the permanent representative of Kyrgyzstan for the statement. I see no further requests for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L34-F1? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L34-F1 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L34-F1? I see no requests for the floor. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item K of agenda item 18. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 21A, follow-up to the 5th United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries, in order to take action on draft resolution L57 of the same title, as submitted by the Vice Chair, Mr. Abdulrahman Abdulaziz Fahad Al-Thani, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L33 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L57 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitator of the draft resolution, Mr. Abdulrahman Al-Thani of Qatar, for his efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful and timely conclusion, and I thank all delegations for their constructive engagement in the negotiations. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L57? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L57? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L57 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L57? And I see the United States to be followed by the European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States appreciates the facilitator's successful shepherding of this resolution. We are pleased to join consensus. The United States attaches exceptional importance to our relationships with and the needs of our LDC partners and friends, and we are committed to working together to address our shared objectives and concerns and advance the Sustainable Development Goals. Today's multiple and interrelated global crises are having a profound impact on LDCs and our collective ability to deliver the kind of progress we would like on the path to 2030. We take this opportunity to clarify our position on several items related to this resolution. The United States notes that the term adequate in OP29 has no agreed-upon international definition. In the absence of any common understanding of what constitutes adequate, we should use more inclusive terms that better reflect finance sourced from both the public and private sector. We also underscore our position that trade language, negotiated or adopted at the General Assembly and the Economic and Social Council or under their auspices, has no relevance for U.S. trade policy, for our trade obligations or commitments, or for the agenda at the World Trade Organization, including discussions or negotiations in that forum. While the UN and WTO share common interests, they have different roles, rules, and memberships. Finally, we refer you to our general statement delivered on November 21st, which addresses our position regarding the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including references to specific targets in OP25, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, the New Urban Agenda, illicit financial flows, concessional finance, and characterizations of trade and technology transfer. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the European Union, to be followed by the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the honor to deliver the statement on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate countries Turkey, Montenegro, Serbia, Albania, and the Republic of Moldova, and the potential candidate countries Bosnia and Herzegovina and Georgia align themselves with the statement. We warmly welcome the adoption by consensus today of the resolution follow-up to the 5th United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries. We thank Qatar for the diligent chairmanship, as well as the Secretariat and all delegations for their constructive engagement. The adoption of this resolution reflects a broad consensus on the need to address the multiple and profound challenges that the least developed countries are facing in these times of interlinked crisis. We appreciate that the resolution is oriented towards solutions that aim to ensure that those furthest behind, who make up an overwhelming share of the population in the least developed countries, will not be left behind. The resolution reflects well our joint commitments already confirmed in the Doha Programme of Action adopted last March. Adoption of this resolution today allows us to recommit our support to the implementation of the program, as well as to restate the importance of the shared values and principles it builds upon. As a strong sign of the EU's continuing support and commitment to the DPOA, EU ministers adopted ministerial conclusions in support of a strong and renewed relationship with the least developed countries. EU ministers reaffirmed the commitment to reach 0.20% of GNI for ODA to the least developed countries within the time frame of the 2030 Agenda. Equally important, they stressed the need to collectively promote sustainable international partnerships based on shared values, human rights, gender equality, and mutual respect. As also highlighted by our ministers, the EU welcomes the well-balanced attention the resolution pays to critical challenges and vulnerabilities that the least developed countries are confronted with. These challenges include climate change, biodiversity loss and environmental degradation, but also recent setbacks regarding human development. Most notably and crucially, the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the deteriorating situation of food security, access to finance and energy, and increase of poverty. For this reason, the EU particularly underlines the importance of strengthening health systems and achieving universal health coverage, access for all to safe, quality, effective, and affordable COVID-19 vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics, as well as the importance of education, the empowerment of youth in the LDCs, and the full utilization of the skills and talents of their people, including women, girls, and persons with disabilities. To conclude, the EU and its member states look forward to the second part of the 5th United Nations Conference on the LDCs to be held in Doha in March 2023, and call for an ambitious result, enabling the LDCs to take tangible steps forward for the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. For this, they can rely on the European Union and its member states' unwavering support, solidarity, and continued partnership. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union, and I now give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom, to be followed by Turkey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United Kingdom would like to thank Mr. Abdulrahman Abdulaziz Al Thani from the Permanent Mission of Qatar for his excellent facilitation of the follow-up to the 5th UN Conference on the Least Developed Countries. We would also like to thank the G77 representative, Mr. Nirupam Devnath, from the Permanent Mission of Bangladesh, and the LDC's chair representative, Ms. Dorcas Mwango, from the Permanent Mission of Malawi, for their constructive engagement. The UK is pleased with the outcomes of this year's text, as it advocates for international solidarity in support of the Doha Program of Action. We need renewed global partnership and targeted focus, with a full mobilization of the UN system and support for human rights for sustainable and resilient development in the LDCs. This resolution is a step in the right direction. The UK is committed to working with LDCs, development partners, and multilateral institutions to progress the 6 priority areas in the Doha Program of Action. We look forward to participating in the 5th UN Conference on the LDCs in March at a high level to advance this critical agenda. The United Kingdom will continue to support the global goal of providing at least 0.2% of our gross national income to LDCs. However, we know we must go further than this. Partnership between public and private sectors will be essential to meet the SDG financing gap, which is why we will also mobilize up to $8 billion of UK-backed financing per year by 2025 through British investment partnerships. The UK is also committed to addressing food security in the LDCs, which was a key area of discussion in this negotiation. We are working alongside partners, such as the UN-led Global Crisis Response Group on Food, Energy, and Finance, the G7 Global Alliance for Food Security, the Roadmap Call to Action, and the EU-led Solidarity Lanes to meet humanitarian needs. We are keeping food and fertilizers moving, providing emergency funding, improving resilience, and accelerating transition to sustainable food systems that will withstand future challenges in places experiencing food crises. As we approach 2030, we must accelerate action and ambition to deliver the Doha Program of Action and respond to the needs of the most vulnerable first. You can count on the UK's support. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United Kingdom for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Turkey.
Madam Chair, as the host of the 4th LDC's conference in Istanbul back in 2011, Turkey has been facilitating this resolution at the 2nd committee since then. Following the adoption of the Doha Program of Action this year as our renewed and strengthened roadmap for supporting LDCs for the next decade, we have handed over this task with pleasure to Qatar. We would like to thank our facilitator from Qatar, Mr. Abdulrahman Al Thani, for successfully guiding us through the negotiations. We welcome the adoption of this resolution by consensus. This year's resolution is based on Doha Program of Action. We are pleased with the references made in this resolution to the concrete deliverables of new program, including online university, investment support center, options for a system of stockholding to address food insecurity, and graduation support facility. We further welcome the resolution calls for addressing the resource needs of OHRLS for the timely and effective follow-up, monitoring, and implementation of the program. In delivering the new program, we also have to continue to benefit from the existing tools that have proven to be successful and necessary in addressing the challenges of LDCs. One of the concrete outcomes of the Istanbul Program of Action has been the United Nations Technology Bank. We are pleased that the role of Technology Bank has been highlighted and again recognized in the resolution. Turkey is proud to work with LDCs in assisting them with technological upgrading through the bank. The Technology Makers Lab, which has recently been launched by Turkey together with Niger and United Nations Technology Bank, will be a remarkable example of South-South cooperation in transferring know-how of the best practices to the LDCs towards supporting STI development of youth. Towards implementing the Doha Program of Action, we invite you all to work with the bank. Turkey looks forward to the second part of the LDC5 in Doha and wish all the best to State of Qatar for the success of the conference. We also encourage all to participate to LDC5 conference at the highest possible level to reaffirm our unwavering commitment to ensure that no one is left behind. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Turkey for his statement, and I see no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L57, I understand that draft resolution L33 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item A of agenda item 21. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of Agenda Item 22B, Industrial Development Cooperation, in order to take action on Draft Resolution L67 of the same title, as submitted by the Rapporteur, Ms. Francesca Cassar, on the basis of informal consultations on Draft Resolution L26 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 and China. I would like to inform the committee that Draft Resolution L67 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitator of the draft resolution, Mr. Diego Cimino of Italy, for his efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a successful and timely conclusion, and I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the negotiations. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L67? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L67? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L67 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L67? And I see the representative of the United States, to be followed by the European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On behalf of the United States, I would like to extend our thanks to the facilitator, and we are pleased to join consensus on this resolution. However, the United States would like to highlight that we withdrew from the United Nations Industrial Development Organization in 1996 after concluding that the organization lacked a clear purpose and was generally ineffective. We also refer you to our general statement issued on November 21st for our position on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, the New Urban Agenda, Trade, and Technology Transfer. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States for her statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of the European Union.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the European Union and its member states. The candidate country Turkey, Montenegro, Serbia, Albania, Ukraine, and the Republic of Moldova, the potential candidate country Bosnia and Herzegovina, align themselves with this statement. The EU and its member states are pleased to join consensus today on the resolution Industrial Development Cooperation, and we would like to thank the facilitator from Italy, Diego Cimino, for skillfully chairing these negotiations, as well as all delegations for their constructive engagement. The adoption of this resolution by consensus sends a strong signal of joint ambition to make industrial development an important part of the response to the multiple and interlinked crises. As the resolution notes, the COVID-19 pandemic has severely disrupted supply chains and industrial systems as a whole. Moreover, the economic recovery of industrialized and developing countries shows significant disparities. And ongoing conflicts continue to jeopardize global recovery, including through the destruction of infrastructure. It should also be noted that the industry is still responsible for 1/3 of greenhouse gas emissions, and that it is itself impacted by the consequences of the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. We would like to see these aspects more reflected in the text. That said, the resolution we adopt today makes sure to stress the critical and multifaceted role industrial development can and has to play in tackling growing poverty, empowering all women and girls, addressing the environmental emergency, as well as in supporting countries in post-conflict and post-crisis situations. Through science, technology, and innovation, industrial development can help develop clean energy, including green hydrogen. It can help lift barriers for women and girls through educational trainings and improve women's access to decent jobs. Industrial development is also central to adopting sustainable consumption and production patterns. We are convinced that the transition to a more circular economy, with a reduced pressure on natural resources and a minimized generation of waste, is an essential contribution to global efforts to develop a sustainable, low-carbon, and resource-efficient economy. We therefore welcome with great appreciation the references to this approach in the resolution. The EU remains fully committed to ensure that inclusive and sustainable industry can improve economic resilience, build resilient and sustainable infrastructure, accelerate the green and digital transition while preserving and creating jobs. Altogether, with global and multi-stakeholder partnerships, industrial development cooperation can strengthen means of implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals while leaving no one behind. I thank you.
I thank the representative of the European Union for his statement, and there are no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L67, I understand that draft resolution L26 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item B of agenda item 22. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of Agenda Item 22E, Eradicating Rural Poverty, to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in order to take action on Draft Resolution L13 Rev 1 of the same title as submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that Draft Resolution L13 Rev 1 has no program budget implications, and I wish to thank the facilitator of the draft resolution, Ms. Nadia Mikhail of Eritrea, for her efforts in bringing the informal consultations to a conclusion. I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the negotiation process. Does any delegation not a member of the Group of 77 in China wish to join as sponsor of draft resolution L13 Rev 1? If so, please signify by pressing your microphone button. I see none. A recorded vote has been requested on draft resolution L13 Rev 1. Before proceeding to the vote, I give the floor to any sponsored delegation wishing to make a general statement in connection with the draft proposal, or any non-sponsored delegation wishing to make a statement in explanation of vote. I would like to remind delegations that in accordance with Rule 128 of the Rules of Procedure, the author of a proposal is not permitted to explain his or her vote on his or her own proposal. Does any delegation wish to make a general statement or an explanation of vote before the vote in connection with draft resolution L13 Rev 1 entitled Eradicating Rural Poverty to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development? I see no request for the floor. The committee will now commence the process of voting on draft resolution L13 Rev 1. In accordance with Rule 128, no representative may interrupt the voting except on a point of order in connection with the actual process of voting. We shall now begin the voting process. Delegations should signify their votes. Those in favor of draft resolution L13 Rev 1, please signify. Those against and abstentions.
The committee is now voting on draft resolution L13 Rev 1 entitled Eradicating Rural Poverty to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Will all delegations confirm that their votes are correctly reflected on the screen? The voting has been completed. Please lock the machine.
I thank the Secretary. The result of the vote is as follows. In favor, 126, against 51, abstention 0. Draft resolution L13 Rev 1 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make an explanation of vote or general statement after the adoption of draft resolution L13 Rev 1? And I give the floor to the representative of Czechia, to be followed by India.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am delivering this statement on behalf of the European Union and 38 UN member states, knowingly the EU member states, the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, Albania, Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Georgia, Iceland, and Liechtenstein. We would like to start by thanking Ms. Nadia Mikhail from Eritrea for her efforts as a facilitator of this resolution. We would also like to extend our gratitude to both Mr. Lucas Tavares and Ms. Claudia Scuriatti from FAO, who have been an immense support to all of us throughout the whole process. We welcome the progress in this resolution, which calls for an inclusive and sustainable digital transformation, highlights the need for quality, reliable, sustainable, and resilient infrastructure, promotes the full, equal, and meaningful participation and leadership of women at all levels and sectors, and contains a positive reference to agroecology and other innovative approaches. Madam Chair, we care deeply about poverty eradication. We work in partnership with developing countries around the world every day to move us all closer to achieving the 2030 Agenda and ensure no one is left behind. However, we continue to have fundamental concerns with this resolution. The overall approach to poverty eradication outlined in this text is not one we can support. We continue to support considering the issue of rural poverty more holistically as part of the third decade of poverty eradication resolution adopted by consensus, which would also be in line with our revitalization agenda for the work of our committee and not considering rural poverty as a separate issue. We believe that poverty is multidimensional, so if we want to eradicate poverty, it can only be tackled in an integrated way. Moreover, the outcomes in this resolution are duplicative and undermine Member States' agreement to committee efficiency. The Secretary General produces an annual report that analyzes progress on the eradication of poverty holistically, and the issue of rural poverty should be addressed through that report. We are disappointed that problematic ideological text remains in this resolution. OPs 4, 7, 8, 18, and 22 in particular continue to reflect the domestic policies and political ideology of a single member state and are not appropriate in this resolution. Equally, we cannot accept the reference to win-win cooperation and building a shared future for humankind. We object to the use of language that excludes important elements of international standards and best practices for sustainable development that were adopted in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, such as the rule of law, human rights, transparency, equality, equity, accountability, and leaving no one behind. Further, the meaning of a community of nations is already present in the UN Charter and thus should not be reinterpreted. In line with this position, we strongly believe that the fight against poverty should be guided by the 5 Ps of the 2030 Agenda: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership. We support a holistic approach linking rural poverty to economic prosperity, social justice, and the protection of the environment and biodiversity, the fight against climate change, and the promotion of health consistent with the One Health approach. In this respect, we would like to express our concern that this text does not address all 3 dimensions of sustainable development equally, which can only undermine the achievement of SDG 1. Consequently, we have joined more than a quarter of the committee membership on voting no on this resolution again this year for the 5th year in a row. Madam Chair, next year we will have the opportunity to try again to bring this text into consensus, and we look forward to finding a compromise that would enable all delegations to join consensus and view eradication of poverty in a holistic manner. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Czechia for the statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of India, to be followed by Australia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I would like to thank you and the Second Committee Bureau for their work in the challenging Second Committee session. I also thank Ms. Nadia Mikhail from Eritrea for facilitating this resolution. I would like to explain India's position on this resolution L13 Rev 1, eradicating rural poverty to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is a very important and critical issue for my delegation and for my country. In India, we're implementing a comprehensive development strategy to eradicate poverty through accelerated economic growth and broader social safety nets, lifting millions out of poverty in the last decade. Our COVID-19 response and the post-pandemic social protection response has been pro-poor, and we have targeted the last mile. We believe this resolution is important, and the flag has rightly been held up by the developing world even today. It is unfortunate that one delegation has used this resolution to propagate its domestic political ideologies and ideas. OP 22 of this resolution refers to win-win cooperation and building a shared future for humankind, and these phrases are only relevant to a particular member state and its political leadership. These phrases in no way contribute to eradicating rural poverty, nor bridging the digital divide. The phrase win-win has no internationally agreed meaning, nor does the phrase building a shared future for humankind. Member states need to have a chance to discuss that future. We have voted in favor of the resolution, but we disassociate ourselves from OP 22 of the resolution, eradicating rural poverty to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Let me assure you of our continuous effort and our utmost support to eradicate rural poverty in India and in other developing countries. I thank you, Madam Chair.
I thank the representative of India for his statement, and I now give the floor to the representative of Australia, to be followed by the United States.
Madam Chair, I have the honour of delivering this statement on behalf of Canada, New Zealand and my own country, Australia. I'd like to start by thanking Ms Nadia Mikel of Eritrea for her efforts in facilitating this resolution, as well as colleagues from the FAO for their support. Madam Chair, we believe that poverty eradication in rural areas is essential to achieving the 2030 Agenda and leaving no one behind. In each of our development programs and here at the UN in New York, we work in partnership with developing member states to support policies and programs aimed at delivering on the SDGs, including in rural areas. This includes policies and programs related to good governance, economic growth, gender equality, the empowerment of all women and girls, education, health services, infrastructure, agriculture, and climate adaptation, to name just a few. Nonetheless, we remain of the view that this resolution does not represent the best path forward for our shared efforts to eradicate rural poverty through the 2030 Agenda. Our concerns with this resolution are twofold. First, this resolution is duplicative of the work already being done in the second committee through the resolution on the implementation of the third UN decade for the eradication of poverty. As long-standing supporters of efforts to revitalise the second committee and to make it more efficient and effective in advancing our shared efforts to achieve the SDGs, we do not support resolutions that unnecessarily stretch the resources of this committee and of the UN system. Having delegates negotiate simultaneously on two resolutions of such similar topics is an unnecessary and unfortunate diversion of resources and energy at a time when our agenda is already very full. Second, the efforts outlined in this resolution to eradicate rural poverty are not fully aligned with the 2030 Agenda. We firmly believe that it is not possible to eradicate poverty in rural areas by focusing on a narrow set of actions that deliver on economic growth. Rather, the 2030 Agenda outlines 17 Sustainable Development Goals that are integrated and indivisible and balance the three dimensions of development: economic, social, and environmental. We remain concerned with the use of the phrases win-win cooperation and building a shared future for humankind, which describe development models that prioritise economic development over the universal human rights of individuals in developing countries and which do not enjoy consensus at the UN. Madam Chair, despite our concerns with this resolution, we engaged in good faith throughout the negotiations. We offered a range of language proposals, drawing from the 2030 Agenda and other agreed sources, with a view to strengthening the document to a point that we could support it. We were disappointed that almost none of our proposals were acceptable to the proponents of this resolution. Consequently, we were not able to vote in support of this resolution in the 77th session. Madam Chair, we look forward to the opportunity to try again next year to discuss these issues in the hope of finding a path towards consensus. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Australia for her statement, and I now give the floor to the United States, to be followed by China.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In addition to the joint explanation of vote delivered by the European Union, the United States also cannot support the reference to combat protectionism in OP9, which we interpret as a veiled and inappropriate reference to the use of WTO-consistent trade remedy measures and enforcement actions against unfair and market-distorting trade practices of other countries. With regard to our position on the transfer of technology and characterization of the trading system, as well as language referring elsewhere to the 2030 Agenda, the Addis Ababa Action Agenda, and the New Urban Agenda, we refer you to our general statement delivered on November 21st. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the United States, and I now give the floor to the representative of China.
主席女士，首先我要感谢 Nadia Mikel 女士来自厄立特里亚作为协调员的出色工作。我要感谢 Lucas Travis、Claudia Scrutinetti 来自两种组织所提供的技术支持。消除贫困是人类面临的共同挑战，也是2030年可持续发展议程的首要目标。当前新冠疫情、气候变化、地缘冲突 粮食和能源危机等挑战交织叠加，给全球发展事业带来严重冲击。广大发展中国家受影响最大，数千万人重返极端贫困，如期实现减贫可持续发展目标，面临严峻挑战。联合国秘书长的报告显示，极端贫困主要发生在农村地区，全球80%以上的极端贫困人口居住在农村。推进农村减贫对实现可持续发展目标至关重要。中方支持联大以协商一致方式通过农村减贫决议，对少数国家罔顾广大会员国愿望，再次对决议提出表决，深感遗憾。2015年联合国发展峰会通过2030年议程，明确指出各方应坚持合作共赢，让发展惠及所有国家和全世界。联合国千年宣言也指出，应本着人类命运与共的意识，努力推动公平包容的全球化。践行合作共赢和人类命运共同体理念，对消除发展鸿沟，帮助发展中国家，特别是非洲国家和特殊处境国家，落实可持续发展目标至关重要。我们生活在同一个地球村，面对各种风险挑战，应该同舟共济。以意识形态划线，搞集团政治和阵营对抗，只会阻碍全球发展和人类进步。少数国家拒不履行自身承诺，不断减少对发展合作投入，反而抹黑别国推动合作的努力和成果，刻意曲解合作共赢、人类命运共同体理念。这种把发展问题政治化的做法，完全背离时代潮流，违反2030年议程、联合国千年宣言等国际共识，注定不得人心。发展是人类社会的永恒追求，各国共同发展才是真发展。各国应携手努力，让团结代替分裂，合作代替对抗，包容代替排他，共同推动实现更加强劲、绿色、健康的全球发展，加速落实2030年议程，不让任何一国、任何一人掉队，为构建全球发展共同体开辟更加光明前景。谢谢主席女士。
I thank the representative of China for his statement, and there are no further requests for the floor. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item E of agenda item 22. I now invite the committee to resume its consideration of agenda item 23B, South-South Cooperation for Development, in order to take action on draft resolution L62 entitled South-South Cooperation, as submitted by the rapporteur, Ms. Francesca Cassar, on the basis of informal consultations on draft resolution L38 submitted by Pakistan on behalf of the Group of 77 in China. I would like to inform the committee that draft resolution L62 has no program budget implications. I wish to thank the facilitators of the draft resolution, Ms. Mariam Hamdouni of Morocco and Mr. Afonso Lages of Portugal, for their efforts in bringing the informal consultations to successful conclusion. I also thank delegations for their constructive engagement in negotiations. Does any delegation wish to make a statement in connection with draft resolution L62? I see no request for the floor. May I take it that the committee wishes to adopt draft resolution L62? I hear no objection. Draft resolution L62 is adopted. Does any delegation wish to make a statement after the adoption of draft resolution L62? And I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States is pleased to join consensus on this resolution. With respect to OP9, while we support South-South cooperation, we believe that member states, as the funders of UNDP, the UN Trust Fund for South-South Cooperation, and the UN Office of South-South Cooperation, should have oversight over its activities, funding, and most importantly, partnerships. Regarding OP13 and the transfer of technology specifically, the United States understands that all references to transfer of or access to technology in this resolution refer to voluntary technology transfer on mutually agreed terms and conditions, and that all references to access to information and/or knowledge that is made available with the authorization of the legitimate holder. Finally, regarding our positions on trade, the WTO, special drawing rights, concessional finance, economic sanctions, and other issues related to technology transfers, we refer to our general statement as delivered on November 21st. Thank you.
Thank the representative of the United States. I see no further requests for the floor. In light of the adoption of draft resolution L62, I understand that draft resolution L38 is withdrawn by its sponsors. The committee has thus concluded its consideration of sub-item B and of agenda item 23 as a whole. Colleagues, we have thus concluded our program of work for this meeting, and we have 3 resolutions for the afternoon. Unfortunately, we cannot take them up earlier because the first one, namely L61, is still not issued. We could probably take the second and the third now, but we have to still come back in the afternoon for the for L61. So I suggest we just meet at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for the 3 of them, and we'll take them up together. The meeting is adjourned.